I'm Captain Katarn, and today we're diving into a hot topic that's been making waves across the gaming community: the Stop Killing Games movement. This movement just hit a major milestone in the EU, gathering enough signatures to be considered for legislation, and it's all over YouTube right now. It's all speculation at this point, but come on, if you're into Star Citizen, then theory crafting and speculation is part of the appeal. So let's check out, what does it actually mean, and how could its requirements affect a game like Star Citizen? Let's briefly summarize what Stop Killing Games is and why it matters. If you're already familiar, there are chapter tags so you can skip ahead. The movement is a grassroots consumer campaign pushing for new laws to protect gamers from losing access to games they paid for. It's a response to a pretty frustrating trend: game publishers shutting down online services for older games, often rendering them unplayable. This movement wants to make sure that when a company decides to kill a game's servers, players aren't left high and dry with nothing to show for their purchase. Here's the gist of what the proposed EU initiative calls for. There's three major tenets. Number 1, keep games playable. If a publisher sells you a game or in-game content, they should leave that game in a functional, playable state, even if they shut down official servers. Number 2, no remote shutdown without alternatives. The initiative aims to prevent publishers from remotely disabling a game until they provide a reasonable way for players to keep playing without the publisher's involvement. Basically, if they want to pull the plug, they need to hand us the keys to a backup plan first. Number 3, no free ride needed. Importantly, the movement isn't asking for publishers to give away their IP or keep funding a game forever. It doesn't demand ownership rights or ongoing support, just that the game is left in a reasonably functional state for customers who bought it. This isn't about forcing Rockstar to keep GTA Online running at a loss for eternity. It's about giving players an offline mode or private server option when official support ends. This whole campaign was largely kicked off by YouTuber Ross Scott on the Accursed Farms YouTube channel, who highlighted the issue with a high-profile example: Ubisoft's The Crew. If you remember The Crew, it's a 2014 open-world racing game that blended single-player and multiplayer. The catch? Even the single-player experience required connection to Ubisoft's servers for things like account validation. Fast forward to 2024, Ubisoft decided it was no longer commercially viable to keep those servers running. They shut down the servers, and that instantly bricked the entire game for everyone. Yep, even if you only wanted to cruise solo against AI, tough luck. The Crew you bought became the game you couldn't play at all. Understandably, players were furious. This wasn't an isolated incident. We've seen plenty of games, especially those with always online DRM or server-dependent gameplay, meet a similar fate. But The Crew was a catalyst because it was relatively recent and high profile. In fact, there was even a class action lawsuit attempt in the US over The Crew's shutdown. Ubisoft's defense doubled down on the fine print, essentially saying, you don't actually own the game, you just bought a limited license to access it, pointing to the warning on the box that online features could be canceled with 30 days notice. Ouch. On the community side, the backlash was so bad that Ubisoft promised never to do that again for its sequels. They even started working on an offline mode for The Crew too, so history wouldn't repeat. But the damage was done. The Crew's demise had become the poster child for killed games. The Stop Killing Games movement grew out of this frustration. It struck a chord with gamers and creators on YouTube. Suddenly everyone was talking about preserving games. And it wasn't just talk. It became an official European Citizens Initiative, a formal EU petition mechanism. Just days ago, it surged past 1 million signatures, clearing the threshold for the European Commission to take it seriously. This is huge, because if the EU eventually passes legislation in line with this initiative, it could change the rules for game preservation across Europe. For players, that sounds great, right? Well, whenever you challenge the status quo, there's going to be pushback, and the games industry is pushing back hard. A coalition of game publishers in Europe, called Video Games Europe, quickly released a statement opposing the Stop Killing Games proposals. Their argument, and I'm paraphrasing, is this: hey, we get why players are upset, but we need the freedom to shut down services when they're no longer viable. We always give notice. Requiring offline or private server options isn't so simple. It could expose player data, bypass our content moderation, and open us up to legal liability. Plus, many games today are built as online only from the ground up. Forcing offline modes or private servers would limit developer creativity and make games prohibitively expensive to create. Now, as a gamer, you might raise an eyebrow at those claims. Modders and fan communities have resurrected dead games on private servers plenty of times. Hell, I play Star Wars Galaxies on this very channel, a game that has been dead for 14 years now, and it was reverse engineered off packet data from the live game by a bunch of hobbyists. If hobbyists can do it, It's hard to believe the original developers can't in a controlled legal way. The movement's supporters point out that these publisher arguments sound less like technical impossibilities and more like inconveniences or business decisions. From the consumer perspective, we paid for the game, we should be able to play it, full stop. And if a game was marketed and sold like a product, not a subscription, the publisher shouldn't get to flip a switch and render it worthless. There's a lot of emotion on the player side, a sense of being misled and ripped off when games are shut down prematurely. The drama has been playing out in videos, forums, and probably ended the career of one YouTuber specifically. Despite some initial skepticism when even the movement's leader said he was bracing for failure, the overwhelming support forced everyone to pay attention. It's not a mostly worthless change.org rant, it's sitting on the EU Commission's table now. And honestly, it's got big implications for games like Star Citizen. We'll get to that in a second. If you're enjoying this video and if you're into deep dive, no-nonsense game talk, a like and a sub really helps. It helps keep these long-form videos alive in the algorithm, and I've got more like this in the works. I appreciate you. If you've been following Star Citizen since the early days, you'll know that Chris Roberts and CIG have long promised that players would one day be able to run their own private servers for the game. This was more than just a throwaway feature. It was practically part of Star Citizen's reason for existing. Back in the 2012 Kickstarter and subsequent interviews, Roberts often said he wanted to avoid the fate of games that die when publishers shut off servers. In fact, one reason he went with a crowdfunding model, instead of signing on with a big publisher like EA or Activision, was so that no corporate suit could pull the plug on Star Citizen's universe if it wasn't turning a profit, as he stated during a December 2012 interview on the Total Biscuit YouTube channel. The vision was that if CIG ever had to step away, the community could still keep the game alive on their own terms. So, in theory, Star Citizen's philosophy aligns with the Stop Killing Games movement, at least on paper. CIG previously stated that private servers are a planned feature, allowing fans to host the game themselves with mods and even offline play supported. The idea was that you could spin up your own little corner of the verse, tweak it however you like, and not worry about CIG's official servers or policies. Sounds great, right? And it's a big but. There's a catch. Star Citizen's technology and scope in 2025 are a whole different beast compared to most games. The promise of private servers was made when we all imagined perhaps a simpler architecture, maybe like a traditional dedicated server you run for a game like Minecraft or Arma. Oh, and a game that would release in 2015. However, Star Citizen has evolved into something far more complex, a massive, persistent universe simulation that relies on cutting-edge server meshing and a replication layer spread across multiple machines. If you log into Star Citizen today in Alpha 4.0 and beyond, you're not just connecting to a single server box, you're entering a shard, essentially a cluster of servers working together to simulate the star systems. As of the current design, each shard of the Star Citizen persistent universe isn't one server handling 100 players. It's on the order of 10 plus interconnected server instances divvying up the workload of 2 whole star systems, Stanton and Pyro, and all the players in them. For example, one server might be responsible for the area around ArcCorp, another for Hurston, others for various space regions, and so on, all synchronized by the replication layer. The current shards allow for 600 players spread over 10 servers, each machine handling a slice of the universe. They're pushing toward even larger populations and more servers per shard as development continues. What this means is that Star Citizen's server is not a single program you can just download and run on your gaming PC. It's an entire distributed system running in the cloud. To host the full Star Citizen experience yourself, you'd effectively need to replicate a miniature data center, multiple server instances, databases, maybe even the backbone services for economy, AI, etc. In the Star Citizen Wiki's own words, the persistent universe uses multiple servers that spin up dynamically for different functions, economy, AI, etc., and it's not possible for an individual to run the full PU on their own. No kidding. Personally, ever since they detailed plans for server meshing with the presentation at the 2021 CitizenCon, I pretty much was resigned that the dream of private modded servers wasn't going to be a reality anymore based on the immense infrastructure behind it. But maybe I was wrong. Their initial plan for private servers was never that you'd literally run the exact PU as is. Instead, they envision a scaled-down version for player-hosted servers. Think of it more like how the old Freelancer or Neverwinter Nights servers worked, a static universe with a cap on players, maybe only certain systems or features, and likely lacking the real-time updates and dynamic scaling of the official servers. It would be minimal Star Citizen, not the full galaxy in all its MMO glory, but enough of the sandbox to play with your friends and mods. Here's the kicker though, When will this happen? By all accounts, private servers are low on CIG's priority list. The official stance has been that private servers will come last, well after release. Whenever that mythical release day arrives, CIG's Jared Huckabee straight up said nobody at CIG is even thinking about private servers at the moment back in 2016, and that the game will need to be fully released and stable for some time before they even look at that feature. We're nowhere near release, so I'm sure this isn't even on their development radar, until now. Now here's where the Stop Killing Games initiative could shake things up. If the EU passes a law requiring games sold in Europe to have some form of offline or private server contingency before the official servers are shut down, Star Citizen would eventually have to make good on its private server promise. Maybe not immediately. Remember, the proposed rule is essentially, before you discontinue a game, you must provide a way for it to keep running. Star Citizen is actively running right now and will hopefully continue to run for years with official support, so CIG wouldn't be on the hook to enable private servers today. However, laws can have indirect effects on development long before the end-of-life moment. For one, CIG markets and sells Star Citizen packages in Europe. A significant chunk of the player base is in the EU. If a law passes, CIG will have to ensure future compliance. It might prompt them to plan ahead and architect certain systems in a way that can be decoupled for offline mode more easily. It could also mean that when Star Citizen is released, no snickering, it will release someday, they might need to at least outline their end-of-life plan to regulators or consumers. The Stop Killing Games initiative pushes for transparency, and we might see Star Citizen and other online games being more upfront about their always-online nature and commitments to keeping the game playable. Star Citizen's ethos already leans toward game preservation. They'd probably welcome a framework that ensures backers can continue their journey in the verse no matter what. If anything, a law would give CIG the extra nudge or excuse to dedicate resources to private server support when the time comes. It could even become a selling point. We've built an offline mode so your investment is safe. I suspect most Star Citizen backers would cheer that. That said, there are challenges. In Star Citizen's case, developing a light version of the server might be non-trivial. CIG will have to provide software that maybe simulates the universe on a single machine or allows a small LAN of a few servers at most. This could involve writing new code to bundle what is currently a distributed cloud service into something more self-contained. It's doable. Other games have private server binaries released to the public, but it's work that CIG might have otherwise postponed indefinitely. Legislation would ensure it does happen eventually. Keep in mind, Star Citizen is constantly evolving. By the time any EU law comes into effect, we're talking years, it has to go through the legislative process. Who knows? Maybe by then CIG will have developed more efficient server meshing that could be scaled down for personal use. Or maybe hardware will advance to where a beefy home rig can emulate multiple servers on VMs. It's hard to predict, but the core principle will remain. Players will legally be entitled to a way to play offline if the online service ends. For Star Citizen fans, that should be reassuring. We've poured money and years of anticipation into this project. The last thing we want is to see our beloved universe go dark one day. Chris Roberts always talked about wanting Star Citizen to be a game people can play for decades. Even a century from now, he imagined folks running around in the verse. If the Stop Killing Games movement succeeds, it essentially aligns the legal environment with that very promise. It's saying no game should just disappear on you, and in Star Citizen's case, CIG would be bound to figure out how to honor that, no matter how technically challenging. One thing's for sure, I'll be watching this space closely. If this legislation moves forward, expect CIG to eventually break their silence on the topic and maybe bump up the priority on those private servers. Until then, I'll be right with you enjoying the verse, but the moment someone makes a fully modded Star Wars version using Star Citizen tech, well, that will be an interesting day indeed. If you found this interesting, drop a comment about what you think. Do you support the Stop Killing Games movement? How do you envision Star Citizen handling offline mode? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Star Citizen content and deep dives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.